Steve was at
Hi,
the
Steve. Hi,
last
Masha.
meeting.
Welcome.
Oh, come here, Doogie.
Ciao. You have to open the.
This is Doogie Bowser.
Oh, very cute.
Hi,
Oh, that's a beautiful kitty.
she's called Mum,
Mom.
and that's because she was a mum when she arrived here. She was actually a feral cat, and she turned up in the garden with 4 kittens, and I basically helped, to rear the kittens, and then I got them home via a shelter here, and I took her in and got her done, and she's been with me and my other cat ever since. But she's, although you can see she's very friendly with me, she's scared of all other humans.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And she was feral, and it was actually really difficult, like looking after her and the kittens when they were little, because people were telling me, you're going to have to get them friendly to humans because otherwise nobody will want them. And she was terrified of me, and all the kittens they were following her. So it was a difficult job. But what's been interesting is that you can see here, this is living proof of a feral cat can come and live with people as a domestic cat, because she's doing it. But she's lovely, as you observe, she's really, really lovely cat.
Well, I'm so glad you came. Steve, did you know about the cafe before, or did you hear about it during Karen's meeting?
I didn't know, and so I'm glad that you kind of spoke up and alerted me to this. But what I was going to say, and well, I'm telling you now, I don't know how long this is going on for, but I'm actually booked in with somebody else at 6 o'clock, which is, I guess, in an hour's time. And that's fine. But what I was going to say as well was I think maybe that I'm involved in conservation and singer-songwriter. I've got a song specifically about plastic pollution that I thought maybe I could play.
Is that the To the Sea song?
Sorry?
Does it talk about to the sea, to the sea?
Yes, that's the song. And I've got
I've heard it.
I've got a book here, which has actually been endorsed by various notable people, including Captain Paul Watson, Sea Shepherd, Lily Platt, 13-year-old global ambassador, friend of Greta's. So I've got that, and this was great. This was not last year, the year before. I was in this Portuguese newspaper, and as you can see, they gave me a full page. And it talks about how I talk about Neptune in my book as the god of the sea. And then Jason Mohammed, he turned up here in Lisbon for the ocean conference thing.
Yeah.
And of course, he was playing like Aquaman, and I mentioned Aquaman. So this title of this says, Poseidon, Neptune, and Aquaman stand by me. And I'm known for doing Stand By Me, a cover of the song. So all of that came about. So, and then also, this is like, I'm really hoping I get this. Next week, there's the World Oceans Summit, again taking place in Lisbon. And they've approved me for a 3-day pass. And then something that I really wanted to be like a speaker, there's an invite on the website for if you want to be a speaker, fill in this application. So I've done that. So I'm kind of praying that they're going to say, yes, Steve, you can be, a speaker as well, in which case I'll be talking about my book, talking about my song, playing my song, and anything else which comes to mind. So, so that's a bit about me, and for everybody else here that doesn't know what I do and who I am. So, yeah.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. That's a great introduction. And I'd like to hear a little bit about everybody who's here, just to welcome you all. The purpose of this is to be social, and we do a lot of work, I think all of us, trying to make the world a better place, particularly try to deal with the plastic issues. but this is a time to not just talk about plastic, but to also connect with each other. So we have a lot of serious work ahead of us. This is our moment to be really human. Who would like to introduce themselves next? Marcia.
It's Marcy.
Marcy.
Sorry, I should change my name. I don't know, it keeps reverting. It keeps reverting. But yeah, so I took Al Gore's climate reality course, and then I wanted to make a change in Rotary, and I was attending SRAG meetings looking for a project, and Lori introduced the Trex recycling project, and so we've been doing that for a couple of years now. We've earned 4 benches, working on our 5th, and we've upcycled more than 6,000 pounds so far, so that's good.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
That is cool.
it's a drop in the bucket, but it makes us feel like we're doing something. And then in our Rotary Club, one of the members works for like an art place, and they have recently gotten a machine that will melt the clamshells, and so they're melting them and making sheets of plastic out of them so they can use them in art. And he gets really annoyed because the snow sleds and saucers that the grocery stores sell are really crappy and they break quickly. And every year, so I live up in the mountains, every year there's a pile of broken sleds and saucers. And so he has taken upon himself to melt them down, and he's trying to make a more sturdy sled out of that. So he's really thinking of ways of using some of the plastic clamshells, and they're definitely going to use them in their art installation. So this is Breckenridge, Colorado, and it's Breck Creates, and they've initiated this this project. So it's really kind of cool. They're just getting started, but everyone in our Rotary Club brings in their clamshells, and so we can upcycle them as well as our plastic film. So we're getting there.
Marcia, that is really
Marcy,
a unique-
Marcy.
Marcy, I keep looking at that. I'm gonna put.
Okay, I'm
tape
gonna
on my
change it.
monitor.
I'm going to change it.
Thank you. But that is, those clamshells are the bane of many of us who try not to purchase things in plastic, and we try to do that, and the clamshells are such a problem.
I know. We're really excited.
Would you be willing to write up 4 or 5 paragraphs and get a picture of you guys, maybe some club members holding some of the plastic, especially the clamshells? I'd like to do a little feature on that, because that might inspire some art community anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exciting. Let's get that out there.
Okay.
Thank you, Marcy. And thanks for changing your thing so a memory impaired people will. So who would like to go next? Joyce, you were one of the first people to log in. Would you like to go next?
Okay, well, I haven't done too much in the way of plastics, so that's why I'm here to get some ideas. Our Rotary Club has been doing tree planting. We did one last year, and we're organizing one for this year, where we're going to plant 10 trees in a park. And then we're also going to get, with the grant that I got from the district, that pays for the trees in the park, as well as 100 saplings that we're going to give away on Earth Day to the public. So that's the tree planting efforts that we're doing. And we just recently, I found in one of the, I think it was an SRAG newsletter about Kenya, a project in Kenya where they were doing solar water purification systems. And so we donated, our club donated $1,000 towards that. which saves trees and because they were cutting down the trees to build fires to purify the water. So that eliminates that, the smoke from that, as well as helps the trees survive.
That's
So-
awesome.
Yeah, so that was a neat project. I was proud that we got that through our international committee. And I went through, like Marcy, I went through the climate reality training and have presented to my club twice, as well as presented to different organizations in town. And then I also created a checklist. I'm part of a group called Community Action for Sustainable Alameda. We're in Alameda, California. And I created a checklist, which I'll put a link to in the chat, that has about 70 things you can do to reduce your, to protect the climate. And then there's resources in Alameda to help you do those things. So that wouldn't be applicable to other people, but the checklist certainly would. So I'll put a link to that. And I handed that out at my Rotary Club.
That's awesome.
Could I add something?
Yes.
Absolutely.
So after I took the climate reality course, of course, I was very excited to have action through Rotary because Rotary is such a powerful organization. However, we have some climate deniers in our Rotary Club, and the only thing I could accomplish was plastic, because I think everybody agrees plastic is a problem. So whether you believe in climate change or not, plastic is an issue. So we have focused on plastic for that reason.
Plastic is like the lost leader for environmental discussions. You know, it's a good way to start because
Yeah.
there's not conflict and people can work together, and hopefully we can start having more broader discussions.
Right, right. Yeah,
Well, thank you, Marcy and Joyce. And let's see, Marcy's from Colorado, Joyce is from California, Steve is from Great Britain.
I'm originally from Wales, but I'm living in Portugal now, and I have residency here, so I'm staying here. So Portugal.
Very good. So going forward, tell us what part of the world you're located in as you introduce yourself.
And then
Now,
one thing I wanted to add was the checklist that I just put the link to. I made one that's a generic one that can be used all over the world. And I sent that to someone on the board of ESRAG to see if we could get it up on the website for everyone to use. So hopefully you'll be able to see a generic one that that will be adopted by Rotary. So that's what I've been working on.
That is cool. That is cool. So next up is either Linda or Kelvin.
Okay, I'll go next. First of all, I'd like to quickly ask Joyce a question. You said you're putting in a tree planting in a park.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the Miyake Forest project?
No, I'm not. Tell me more.
Well, this is a project that was started in Japan and it's now working its way around. One of the people I know in a Rotary Club it's Puget Sound Environmental Rotary Club. That's all they do. So she started it and they were given a piece of land in Shoreline, Washington at the Shoreline Historical Museum, which is a very small place. So what the deal is here is you have a very small place, plot of land, and you plant very heavily to allow the trees to really become like a forest in a short amount of time. There's also an area that they're putting in for meditation and, they'll have some educational things, but it's a really fascinating, I had never heard of it before they brought it, but when you said you were going to do that, I thought that might be an interesting thing to look at.
Okay, thank you, Linda.
So for everyone else, I'm Linda Holman and I am in Lake Forest Park, Washington. I'm the chair of Lake Forest Park Rotary Environmental Sustainability. I'm also on the our District 5030. I sit on their environmental committee, and I'm just a brand new member of SREG, which is where I met Laurie, and she invited me here. What we're doing at this point is really trying to get things moving after the pandemic. A lot of things we were doing fell apart. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's experiencing that. So I'm also a master gardener, and we have a small demonstration garden in one of the city parks here. And we grow produce we donated to a program in Seattle called the Hunger Intervention Program, and they feed both children and seniors. So we've been primarily donating to them for the last year or so. And even though we have a very little garden, and last year was a very challenging year, we still managed to give them 133 pounds of food. So we were happy about that. So this is an organic garden, looking at our site is very challenging, not as much sun as we would like to have. But now we're going to take a part of our site, and that is going to become the Operation Pollination Project for our Rotary Club. So it will be within the confines of the Master Gardener site, but it's going to be Rotary's project, and we're going to start working on that this spring. I also sit on the city committee for climate change, and we are called the Climate Action Committee, and we are actually tasked from the city to write a climate action plan for Lake Forest Park. So
Cool.
Wow.
that's been really challenging, really interesting, fascinating, really challenging to get involved in. So that's my story.
Linda, we did a similar thing with CASA, Community Action for Sustainable Alameda, and worked with the city to come up with a climate action plan. So you could just Google Alameda climate action plan and get an example of one.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll do.
I love this. This is why we have a cafe. Somebody's working on a problem, somebody's worked on it before. We can steal from each other and get those good ideas out more quickly.
I'll try to find the link for you, Linda, and put it in the chat.
Great. Thank you very much.
Kelvin, if you unmute yourself, we'd love to hear where you're from and what are you doing?
Hello, I am Kelvin Garvan, and I'm here in Los Angeles, District 5280. I had been appointed, well, I was voted the president-elect for the Rotarians for Environmental Action, a virtual cause-based club here. However, I'm thinking to not assume that position. ESRAC seems like in the last 2 meetings I've been very active, very international. I speak Spanish, Italian, and Arabic. I've lived in Spain, I've lived in Colombia. And here in Los Angeles, I've been working directly with nonprofits that are looking to increase food access. And also I've been working with the city of Los Angeles to reduce food waste in alignment with a Senate bill, which is affecting the entire state, which is 1383. Looking to do things locally. So within the context of growing food, requiring food, taking inedible food and composting it and using it locally is something which I'd like to do. So one of the organizations I've volunteered with, they from time to time get food that is not edible, or they cannot distribute food in their supply chain quickly enough. So I'm getting them to, 1, compost on site, and 2, use that to help remediate soil surrounding their facility that has arsenic and lead. Several months ago, I had the opportunity to listen to the American Library Association president, and she talked about libraries as being first informers. So what I've been doing is looking at in communities where you have certain elements like a food distribution organization, perhaps a market, perhaps a church faith-based organization, schools, and also a library, and create an ecosystem where food, awareness of food, outreach about what not to waste. I've come up with a campaign called WTF, hashtag WTF, meaning why toss food? And I've also come up with a PSA campaign looking for a date. It's almost like the person who is the most interesting man in the world, but he's looking for a date. He's looking for a quality date. He's looking for a date he can understand. And then I talk about trying to understand Assembly Bill 954, which is the date labeling law, which is very confusing here in California. So I'm doing fun things like that. Normalmente io non parlo italiano, però forse c'è una possibilità nel futuro per parlare con lui, il signor Caviglia.
Ciao,
Ah,
certo che possiamo parlare italiano.
perché sono arrivato a scuola a New York, però anch'io parlo spagnolo e arabe, però a questo momento è più facile per parlare con il gruppo in inglese.
Yes, of course. Ma se vuoi parlare italiano, potremmo parlare io e te.
Va bene. So that's all I've got. I love Italian, but I generally speak Spanish here. When I do my volunteer stuff, I'm generally speaking to people in Spanish. Many of them cannot read and write. And it's been very transformative to be able to create relationships in other languages with people who are looking to get food and still maintain their dignity while getting their food. So that's all I've got.
Wow, that's a lot. And you've got a gift with words. The WTF is very, very clever. So is finding a date. Plastic Solutions is trying to find a name for a big initiative. If you would be willing to share your email, I'd like to share with you some of the suggestions we've had and then see if you might be able to improve upon them.
Well, you know, speaking of language, I'm really concerned about what's happening here in Los Angeles. So our mayor has called what's happening with homelessness an emergency. So the state of emergency was declared. I think it's a humanitarian crisis based on the fact that on any given day, there might be about 60,000 people who are on the street. One thing that I've been working on conceptually for people who are unhoused is to actually create their own meal kits so that any place where there's a feeding of people, they do not have to keep getting these clamshells. So based on like what happens in the US military, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, or scouting, I guess they call it now, you have your own meal kit. So if you have your own meal kit that you are responsible for, whenever someone is giving away food, you can put it in there and you carry it with you. So
Wow.
I've been talking to some people who do 3D printing to see if one, 3D printing is a possibility, or two, actually repurposing plastics that are already in the system and literally creating meal kits for people that they can carry around, including a small water container. So if you walk into a Starbucks and someone says, I can't give you water because we don't want to get rid of the cups, I have my own cup. Can I just get some? So I'm thinking, and I've been trying to get more traction on this, to create meal kits for people who are unhoused, who can walk around, they can clean their own meal kit. And for however many times they eat a day, they just pull out their meal kit and someone can put the food in it and then they can walk with it.
Yeah. What a wonderful combination of compassion and plastic reduction. Sometimes it feels like a sort of a cause for the privileged, but when you look around the world and look in our unhoused populations, it is a big problem.
I met a guy, so I'm sorry to take up the air. This thing about plastics though, I met a guy in Vancouver who told me about this film called Seaspiracy and the amount of plastics that's being left in the ocean because of industrial fishing. And this movie, I'll put it in the chat. If you might even stop eating tuna fish if you see this film. It's really remarkable. what goes on with industrial fishing and how much plastic they actually leave in the ocean.
Thank you, Kelvin. Tammy, you've got your hand up. You're not the only singer-songwriter in the group. Steve also sings and plays, so you too.
Hi, I'm Tammy. I'm Mulcahy. I live in Northern California. I've been just helping on the social media side of things. And Kelvin, I love, there's a lot of great things. I mean, with the thing that's so impressive about Rotary is that everyone is so go-getter and you're out there and your community is really doing great work. We'd really like to, well, first of all, let me say that when you're doing social media on plastic problems, it can be really a downer because it's not a positive thing. And we're trying to educate people and we want to obviously sometimes throw out solutions, but we also want to highlight people who are doing great projects that are specific to plastics. And Kelvin, I'm very impressed. That's a great idea. I'd love to, I mean, just, you know, in social media, it's got to be a quick sound bite and a very short write-up. And I mean, very, very short. So as they say, it's got to be something picturesque to stop the scroll. But what you're doing with like 60,000 people unhoused and trying to contemplate, yes, all those clamshells, how do we get rid of them? And to supply some meal kits to these folks and a plastic or and a you know a reusable cup is brilliant. I mean, it's such a it's a great thing I'd like to highlight. So that's the kind of stuff we want to start putting up once a week. Something positive that people are doing and can be inspired by. So if you don't mind, could you? I'd love to share that. Could you just drop in the chat, like
It's there.
where you're doing this in LA? I mean, LA is a monster. LA is a state. Where in LA are you talking about, like the downtown area? I mean, if you could just, maybe I could email you and ask you a couple questions.
Very awesome. Let's see. We have not yet heard from Karen, Mark, or David.
Well, I am located in the opposite of Alameda County, which is central Pennsylvania. So I've got my work cut out for me here, but it's all good. I just retired. My husband and I retired here a couple years ago from Maryland, which is getting better and better as far as environmental issues. And their library system is wonderful. I miss that up here. Anyway, so yeah, I've done a lot of different things in my day, and right now I'm working, yeah, I wanted to retire to pretty much work on climate change and environmental issues with Rotary. So so that's what I'm spending most of my days on. So I work with the projects division with SRAG and help to run these weekly meetings that we have. A couple of us here know about them. And they're a lot of fun. There are a lot of information and about all kinds of different issues. And it's all across the world. So to me, it's just very inspiring to hear what's being done for our environment. The thing with plastics with me, we, oh boy, in Frederick County years ago, they wanted to build a, Wheelbrae wanted to build a waste to energy facility. And there were a lot of citizens who did not want to see that happen. Because the logic of building, partly because the logic of building something that requires high BTU feedstock, garbage, trash, to make power just didn't make sense to us at all. And so we did defeat that. It took about 7 years, but I learned a lot about circular economy and plastics and everything. Anyway, the thing that drives me nuts a little bit with plastics is since they're done with petroleum, we want to limit as much plastic as we can. So I mostly say I'm not against plastic. I'm against single-use plastic. But then I hear about companies that depend on recycled plastic to build their business. And so like Trex is great. I'm not against Trex because they really do provide something that's long withstanding and whatnot. But eventually that's not gonna, you can't recycle it forever. And maybe by the time the Trex wears out, we'll be able to recycle it again. I don't know. But anyway, there's always that hope. But anyway, so I'm torn with plastics. Plastics, provide a great service, medical and everything else. Plastics, are great, but single-use plastic, even with all of the wonderful ways we saw to upcycle plastic bottles and things, I'm like, yeah, but we don't need them. Like, let's stop creating them in the first place because they don't get recycled. We don't recycle. We're terrible in the US about recycling stuff. So anyway, so that's my kind of 2 cents, but glad to be here.
Thank you, Karen. And you stated some of those concerns beautifully. Let's see, our quiet man in the corner, Mark Hoppin, Gig Harbor.
Hi. Lori came to my club, the Gig Harbor Rotary Club. And ever since we've started doing stuff, in the beginning, we had one elementary school where we were picking up plastic and had a cooperative relationship with them with a program that Lori started. Now we have 5. We have multiple businesses. One of the businesses is a 60,000 square foot warehouse for Heritage Distillery that has lots of film, and they contribute that. I'm kind of my role. I'm kind of the backup film picker-upper. I go around to elementary schools on call and pick up hideously large bags of stuff that kids have collected, which is good. Interestingly, that effort has talk about plastic being a point of entry. Just this week, one of the club members that's coordinating our Earth Day came to me and said, we're not doing a very good job in our club of dealing with one-time use plastics in our own club at our meetings and all of the functions that we have. And so that's a thing that Lori's been after too. And now almost spontaneously, because I try to keep my mouth shut within reason. Our club's really catching on. And the interesting thing about it is, talk about it being a point of entry. I'll tell you how that's true. About a little over a year ago, I was listening to folks in Monterey talk about pollinators and monarch butterflies. And because I was, inspired, I guess, it suddenly occurred to me, being a former city manager, that there are lots of right-of-ways that are potential pollinator habitat. And you would think that wouldn't be a good place to be a bee next to ultrafine particulates and rubber particulates and solvents and all the stuff and heavy metals and everything that comes off a highway. But I happen to have been a city manager in my last posting right next to SeaTac International Airport. And one day somebody came from SeaTac Airport and said, "Here, Mark, try this honey." I said, where'd it come from? And they said, well, from our aviaries that are right next to the 3rd runway. I went, well, I'm not going to eat that. And they said, well, no, you don't understand. We tested it 9 ways to Sunday. It's got no solvents. It's got no rubber particles. It's got no ultrafine particulates. It's got no, anything that's contaminated. And they had assayed it to death. And so I took a little taste of it and then I threw it away. But nevertheless, bees are remarkably resilient. I mean, they don't want their kids, their little bee offspring, to be contaminated. And so they have ways. Bees are really good at it. So I mentioned it to somebody in my club that's frequently on the SRAG, a guy named Gary Paulette, who you may have run into, who asked, Karen, I know you've run into him. And I said, Gary, how about we always mow an interchange, the central of 3 interchanges in our harbor. So how about we have a pollinator project on there? And he goes, well, it's all full of blackberry bushes now. I said, they're pollinators. And I thought, whoa, that was not the response I was hoping for. So I just kind of forgot all about it. And about 2 weeks later, they'd already worked it out with WSDOT Turns out that the Washington State Department of Transportation actually has a list of pollinator species they'd like to see in interchanges. And the next thing I know, while it was snowing out several weeks ago, we were digging holes for 200 plants that were the first of 3 phases of a plan that the same Gary Paulettis put together with his wife, Chris, because they're former growers in Southern Oregon. And now we're having a rather complicated pollinator habitat project that's also beautification of an interchange. We're also videoing it so it can become a replicable project around the world. Go to the Rotary International Convention, and we've got a rather capable videographer doing it. So from plastics to that. And I do think plastics are a point of entry. I do.
That's awesome. Let's see, David hails from Africa. David.
Yes, hi, how are you?
Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. This is David, based out of Kampala, Uganda. That is District 9213. I'm a member of a local club called Aros Tintinda, which is also in Kampala. I'm the club admin. And of course, I've been part of a shrug for about now, I think 2 years. And enjoy the topics that we discuss here. Of course, we've discussed with Laurie some time ago about how to change the plastics, especially here, into benches which our children can sit on, because we have a number of rural schools where the children sit on stones, some sit outside under the tree. So if we can have some of these plastics turned into benches, it would be a good idea. We're still looking around. And otherwise, because in Kampala alone, we produce about 2,000 metric ton, 2 tons every day of waste. And of course, maybe 50% you can say is about plastic, which remains uncollected in the slums and goes into the drainage tunnels, which goes into the swamps. We know Kampala is it's near one of the largest freshwater lakes, that is Lake Victoria, for those who know Uganda. So some of this plastic heads into Lake Victoria and also the River Nile, which also goes through Uganda. So the issue of plastics is a really, really interesting topic, and here to share and learn from the others who have been in it. Thank you.
Thank you, David. It's really good to have you here. I love the internationality of all this. So let's see, we've got Africa covered, a lot of North America, but Olderico, you're hailing from Italy. Better get us up to date on who you are and what you do. This is a man who never sleeps. Uh-oh.
Can't hear him.
You're frozen there, Olderico.
Doesn't sleep, but he freezes.
Yeah, he'll be back. He'll be back. Oh, well, this has been great. I think everybody here probably knows me, but I'm from Paulsbo, Washington, and I'm one of the co-chairs along with Olderico of the Plastic Solutions Task Force of SRAG. And the big push that we are getting ready to do is to encourage clubs to quit using single-use plastics and, if possible, single-use products of any type. So here's Olderico. He's back amongst us.
Sorry, because I am in the car, because I am just out of the work. And we produce some videos for plastic pollution for schools. Very little video. The first 2 are already done, soon will be presented. And also our club is working different kind of environmental initiative in Italy about like Adopt a River and something based on the, especially on the plastic pollution in the water. I came from digital. My job is digital. I work also in export, and in SRAG Plastics, I manage the website and the communication of the task force, and I support Laurie in those kind of events. So if you want any information, you can join our newsletter and stay in touch with us. We are very happy to support you and your club to develop environment and to save our planet.
Thank you, Olderico. What Olderico does is pretty amazing. He, besides doing our complete website, and we do 2 blog posts each week, which automatically get farmed out to our Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And we'd love it if you guys would share some of those posts. When you share them, it greatly expands their reach. And it does some really good things for awareness. It's a force multiplier. So it may seem like a small action to share it, but it's actually pretty important. In addition to the 2 blogs, Tammy Mulcahy is doing amazing work with really powerful and or funny, short, quick Instagram little bits. And so there's stuff out almost every day on plastic or something inspirational or something that is a new horror that we have to face if we want to solve it. So I encourage you, I think Olderico has put the website in there. And I also have a little form if you'd like to be more involved with Plastic Solutions, where you tell us who you are and your contact information, but also what you're most interested in and what you think that Rotary could be doing. And that's called our contact experience form. I'd love to send it to everybody who would like to be a part of these conversations. So my club in 2018, we had a speaker come and talk to us about how our local waste is dealt with. I was fascinated. I just thought it all kind of went away and didn't think too much about where it actually went to. And we learned that the county was doing a styrofoam recycling collection twice a year. And we thought, what if we use Rotary's networking capability, because nobody knew about this collection. So what if we use it to reach into every bar association, medical association, PTA group, faith-based group, anybody that a Rotarian had their fingers in to just get the word out. So from that start, we realized that while it's important to gather the styrofoam and it's important to gather for Trex, it arrests it in its trip to the landfill by at least a decade, they weren't addressing any root causes. And so we decided to go zero waste at our big public bicycle ride. And we were able to, just by paying attention and doing some simple changes, we went from 4 cubic yards of waste to a little 9-pound bag. And most of that 9 pounds was from a soggy blanket that a 10-year-old recycle educator had pulled out of a culvert that was trash. And it has made a big difference. So the Trash Talk Task Force started off with a funny name, and it seems to make it a very approachable and friendly, and people from all backgrounds are involved with helping to collect and transport this plastic. We crossed the 50,000 pound mark last Friday. So even though I think our reusable projects are more significant for the planet, I also believe it's a great practice to clean up the stuff we've got, as long as it's a step, an energizing step to more impactful activities, and gives us camaraderie and energy to keep going.
Can I ask
So-
a question, Lori?
Yeah, Karen and Linda both have.
So yeah, so the plastic, so film, I know film is very recyclable, but not in a lot of single stream places. So
Absolutely.
so the film, not just the plastic bags, but what kind of film can be collected and used for Trek material? We're just learning of a group in a town over from us that does collect it and gets it to Trek. And so So I don't
Cool.
know.
Well, there are
Yeah.
several people who can answer that question in this room today. Marcy, can I pick on you? You were one of our first clubs to get on board.
Sure. So one of the major places we get it is a couple of furniture stores and actually a paint shop. So the paint shop, they have, you know, everything comes wrapped in film. The furniture stores, we really have to do quite a bit of work to get the tape and the labels off. And then, you know, we get bags from retail stores. One restaurant saves their clean plastic film for us. We get it from a church that collects it from individuals. And of course, our Rotary members bring it in. So we really get it from multiple sources.
So it can't have any paper, like any stickers, and it can't have any other tape or anything on it, right? It
Well,
can't
that's what Trex wants, and they want us
Okay.
to, you know, make a good faith effort to give
Okay.
them clean, dry plastic.
All right, cool. We're gonna start trying to do that. Thank you.
It is so cool, Karen. And some of the other things that surprise people the most, bubble wrap can be accepted. Those
Mhm.
air seal things, when they've gone flat and you can't reuse them anymore, they can take that. The electronic mailers, like the Amazon Prime ones that are all plastic, they can take those and you don't have to take the label off of those. They can't, the tape is going to be really bad if it gets in their machines, but they can handle a little bit of labels because they're combining it with recovered sawdust. So Trex has more tolerances than some recycling things, and they make it so easy for us. But what's really exciting is that some people are taking it to a whole other level and exploring the idea that they could sell directly to Trex instead of taking it back to the grocery store retail partners. And that's the other thing that's important. You don't have to store this plastic. You take it back to one of Trex's retail partners, which they list by state right on their website. So let's see, Kelvin, and then Steve, and then Tammy.
When I was listening to Olerico, I didn't know where he was in Italy, but he made me think of the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact. And this was established in 2015 to look at food holistically in terms of its inclusivity, resilience, safe and diverse, provides healthy, affordable food to all people, etc. But I put in the chat the C40 Knowledge Hub. So the C40 cities around the globe, they have an opportunity for us to get information about how they handle certain issues. And it's more than 40 cities. It's cities here in America, as well as, again, around the globe. And not knowing where Olerico is from, I thought that what Milan is doing and how it's been recognized globally with food, especially because they have a program for, I think they have a program for universal food distribution in schools, which is what they're going to begin initiating that supposedly here in Los Angeles. But a place to look for information and to gain knowledge about how cities are handling things around the globe. What I put in the chat there, this C40 cities, and also the Knowledge Hub, it's free. It's a place, it's a resource. It's a resource from, Sao Paulo to Sacramento, from, Washington to Wasaya. I mean, it's every place. And I guess there are over 100 cities that are part of this C40 movement.
Yeah, in Expo
Awesome.
Milan, in 2015, we talk about this activity, and in Parma, Parma city, that is not far from here. Now there is the authority of the food and European authority of the food that it's very important And I think that I know that they are also working on the problem of the plastic pollution in the food that sometimes is comes on our table from the fish and from the other kind of animals. So there are a lot of resources here, and I think that we can also go in this direction to collect more information to share and spread everywhere.
Thank you. Let's see, I think Steve was next.
Thank you, Laurie. Yeah, I'm going to have to go like very soon. So I was just going to basically wanted to say, you know, shall I do my song then and then leave you? I also wanted to say that what Kelvin was talking about tuna is that I mentioned, and Seaspiracy. I recommend Seaspiracy. It's really worth seeing. And tuna is something that I speak about in my book because Tony Robbins, I'm sure like everybody knows who Tony Robbins is. Tony Robbins has admitted that he was actually really ill because he was eating tuna every day and swordfish, and he got mercury poisoning. So I think that's like, you know, worth people knowing about that. You know, you'll actually find that online. Like, and I've heard Tony Robbins talking about it. Tony Robbins got seriously ill from mercury poisoning. So I wanted to say that, and now I would like to play you my song.
Let's have a musical interlude and then we will resume. Thank you, Steve. This should be fun.
You're welcome, and I will join you again. You know, so you know, keep me informed. Plastic plants, what about real plants? I saw the fake ones at the store. People must want them, people must buy them. I don't want to see any more. Where does all the plastic go? Into the sea, into the sea. How does it get there? Who threw it away? Was it you or was it me? It's not hunting that'll kill the last whale. Plastic will do it, it's a very sad tale. And all the albatrosses are dying out too. They keep on fishing in the oceans. Plastic stew. Where does all the plastic go? Into the sea, into the sea. How does it get there? Who threw it away? Was it you or was it me? The plastic bag I bought, it very quickly broke. If it ever gets burned, there'll be poisonous smoke. Where does all the plastic go? Into the sea, into the sea. How does it get there? Who threw it away? Was it you? Was it me? Plastic kills the turtles and it's eaten by the fish. Plastic's in the food chain and the dinner on your dish. Where does all the plastic go? Into the sea, into the sea. How does it get there? Who threw it away? Was it you? Was it me? Was it you? Was it me? Was it you? Was it me?
I think that we can adopt as a hymn after Rotary national hymn and Rotary hymn. I think that we can adopt for as a plastic solution.
Yeah, that's wonderful. We're gonna all have to hear Tammy's beautiful piece, part of the solution too. I'm not springing this on you at this moment, of course, Tammy, but there's some real talent right here in this little cafe of ours. It's pretty amazing.
Thank you so much, everybody. I've really got to go now. So thank you. And I will join you again. So please keep me informed. Bye, everyone.
Very good, Steve. Will do. That was so much fun. What a fun song. I wish I could have heard more of the guitar, but I could still get that sense of what was going on in that song. Great lyrics.
Tammy, your turn.
Let's see, Linda, did I see your hand up and then forget to call on you? No, okay.
No.
It's Tammy's turn now.
Tammy.
Yeah.
Well, I have a few things that, taking notes as I have, just commenting on the mercury in the film thing. Tuna is one of the longest and biggest growing animals, and that's why it accumulates the most mercury inside. And that's why you have to be very careful eating the larger fishes on a regular basis because they accumulate the most mercury. Seaspiracy was a sort of a more controversial film, only because as you read about it, if you go online, you can read about that, but it has a lot to do with the nets being the primarily issue. But the other show that might be good for people to see is one called Chasing Coral, and another one, Kiss the Ground, if you already haven't seen that, because that is very much about our whole agricultural system, which is, I think, very fascinating. What I wanted to say also is that as you're asking questions about the Trex program, Lori and I did long conversations about this and recorded it, and then I edited them out, and those are up on the YouTube channel that we have. And in that, we go through repetitively a lot about how single film plastic, grocery bags, those things can't go in those single stream things. They don't belong in single stream. I went to an event the other night, and I said, I'll take all these plastic crab feed bibs home and recycle them. And the person who's very environmentally knowledgeable said, well, just put them in recycling. It's like, no, you can't put them in recycling. And people don't know this. And so we have to continue that education program to collect that stuff separately out of our single stream and return it to wherever we can. So the YouTube channel is there for those of you who are more curious about that. I like how, Lori, you said the cleanup is a necessary step. We have to do that, but obviously we have to stop the production and the usage where it begins. I would love if the people who have done this collection stuff, because to document how specifically you started. Because what's missing from me in those videos, as I think about it, is questions like, who did you go to first? How did you get the kids involved? Okay, some of you mentioned the PTA. Well, where the heck did you store all this stuff before you took it someplace? Did you put it in your garage? How many pickup trucks did you need to get it there? Did you need drivers? So in other words, so people can do this and replicate this program. It'd be very easy, much easier if you had a list, like I can't remember who posted the thing in Alameda, but a checklist. How do you start this? How do you educate people on this? And that would make life a lot easier. Sorry, I like I'm a songwriter. I don't write in order. I write all over the place. Where's my other thing? And also what I would like to know, and I would like to hear from you, are you on social media? What do you look for when you do it? What inspires that you would like to see us putting more on there that would capture and inspire and that you would feel good about sharing and moving on? Anybody?
Oh.
Must not be a social media group.
I don't have time.
Oh.
No.
Think about that, and let Tammy know your answers. And just because this little silo that's able to meet from 9 to 10 on a weekday working day isn't particularly as social media active as some, we have to be reaching out to younger people.
Yes.
Yes.
And Tammy does some amazing work. I hope that you will look at her work on both YouTube and Instagram. She just introduces a lightness to some very heavy topics that makes it go down well. Mark, you have your hand raised.
Well, I just have a question for Tammy. What's the most effective way to access your material on Instagram or YouTube or anywhere else?
You mean the SRAG stuff? So it's just, if you're on Instagram, you just would follow Rotary SRAG Plastic Solutions. And there you will see everything. And then on YouTube, it would be just SRAG Plastic Solutions. Or Rotary SRAG Plastic. It's always the combination of Rotary, SRAG, Plastic Solutions. And then if you put that in anywhere in particular, you can find it.
Yeah, in the chat you can find the two links, YouTube and Instagram.
Did you have another question, Mark?
No, but I'm just looking at Lori. I'd like to share something. Can I do that?
Please.
Something I did this week that I think you all might cogitate on is I got a hold of our new county council person, because in my locality, all the cities have a broader county solid waste contract. And it has occurred to me, as has been mentioned here, that a lot of the pickup of recyclables ignores a whole lot of different plastics and styrofoam, and maybe in your locality you have those things available to you, but I sure don't. And I didn't when I was a King County person in a nearby county working there and negotiated a solid waste contract, city to vendor. Here I don't have to do that, where I mean, and nobody, because the county takes care of that. But if you know who has the right to drive solid waste trucks on your street, then you can figure out which locality is actually negotiating your franchise to provide the vendor the opportunity to do that. Talking to your legislative people of that franchisor is a way to access plastics and a broadened service. And it's really hard to do. I've personally negotiated with some of the large waste vendors, and I realize what a complicated thing it is to do and access. But once you know your legislator and can tune them in and bother them about it, then you have access to something that could really be quite remarkable if we all got after it. And I mean, I don't think that's an easy thing to do. And most of us think franchises are like McDonald's. We don't realize that it's also a franchise to allow somebody to drive over your street to do some utility purpose. And solid waste is one of those. So chasing after solid waste contracts through the franchises that your locality issues for them periodically. And sometimes those are like 10-year contracts. They don't come up all the time. But if you can get your legislator to work on it, you've got a good chance to broaden the kind of plastics that are collected. And right now, that's not easy to do.
On that note, I see that we are we're over the hour, and we can always continue these topics on email with each other and for the future. And if you like this Plastic Cafe, this is something that we could do maybe even once a month. So there's always something new in the world of plastic. A new movie that you've just heard that's informative that our club members should see, a project that another club has fielded, a bit of research that lets us know what's a real solution versus the many false solutions that can lead us kind of to waste our time, and none of us have time for that. But the talent that is here today, the dedication, it's an inspiration. And I'm really glad that I could spend an hour with everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lori.
Yeah,
This
thanks.
is-
Thanks for inviting us. It was great.
Be well, enjoy the day.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be in touch.
Bye, David.
Bye-bye.
Bye, David.
Bye-bye, Lori. Bye, everyone.
So Lori,